Hola patrones, welcome back to another little tutorial video. I was doing this dragon skin tutorial on the circle thing, which is kind of like the stories at Instagram, but they kind of disappear when you do it on Patreon. And you can always archive on Instagram, but they disappear on Patreon. I don't know how to like make them stay there. So I'm just gonna do a whole, just kind of whole video tutorial step by step on how to dragon skin your Spider-Man emblems or whatever costume you want to bring a 3D effect onto the costume, how to do that, okay? So what we have back here is this advanced Spider-Man suit from the PS4 game, and the pieces that are dragon skinned are the hand armor here, the knuckles, this like side armor here that's kind of like bones. Like I really dig that, what they did with that design. And it's a really cool effect because it's really stretchy. It stretches with the suit. It's rubbery, kind of gives it a little bit of weight. And it just kind of elevates the whole look of the costume. So a lot of people do this on their costumes, on their suits. It's a technique that was taught to me by a friend of mine, and I've been doing it for years. I've done it on different designs, always kind of like the emblems or shoulder blades or anything that kind of needs to look like it's a 3D armor effect. It brings some nice shine into it. It's just a really cool thing that you can do quite easily once you learn how to do it. Right here, since you see there's a little bit of muscle shading inside there, we went with transparent, like, so there was no tinting done to this. It's just a clear silicone. But what I'm going to show you guys today is actually a tinted version of the process, so including the tint to make an emblem for this prototype Civil War Spider-Man suit. So what you're going to need, first and foremost, the material you want is dragon skin slow, okay? There's gonna be different types of dragon skins. You wanna make sure you go with the slowest you can find. Smooth On is the brand, and Dragon Skin 10 slow cure, that's what you're looking for, okay? You don't need anything bigger than the trial size, which is like pretty affordable. And it's this like smaller size, and you're gonna be able to get a lot of play out of these two little bottles here. The other thing you need is, I like these medical mixing cups because you can always kind of keep an eye on how much you're mixing, since this goes 1-to-1 by volume. You want to make sure you pour exactly a part A and a part B that are exactly the same, or as close as the same as you can get it. Little popsicle sticks or chopsticks. I really like chopsticks. I keep talking about chopsticks. I always, you go to the sushi place, you tip a little extra and you take like more chopsticks. That's what I do. But you can go to Target and get like, popsicle sticks. And what else? Oh, so we got our tint here. Let me put my gloves on before I grab that little thing, because it's all dirty now after multiple uses. And the thing with tint is that it works really well. So you get that on your hands, you're gonna have like, paint on your hands all day. So you wanna use the silk pigment, and this is for silicone, okay? So there's pigments that I've shown in this page. When I do urethane, I use a different type of pigment. For silicone, you wanna use the silk kind, which is for silicone. So one little bottle of these will last you like a really long time. I've had this one for a while, and it's still good. It's still fresh, and you only need just like a little bit of this silicone pigment on your mix to get a really good color saturation. The other thing you're gonna need is a little bag, just a little plastic bag, where you're gonna pour the mix into, and then you're going to be cutting one of these little corners and just kind of pouring directly onto the fabric. The thing with silicone is silicone will not stick to anything that's not silicone, right? So that's the rule. but when it comes to fabric, it'll kind of soak in, so that's what makes it attach onto the fabric. It's also really easy to peel if you need it. You want to make sure you have as even as a setup as possible, as you possibly can. The silicone cures really slowly, so it'll kind of move slowly like lava, okay? So like picture like a volcano and the lava coming out, and you see the lava coming at you. If it's on a hill, it's gonna come at you eventually. So you don't wanna have any hills. You wanna lay it down as even as you can on a nice even table or a nice even surface, so that the silicone, as it's curing, doesn't kind of go to places you don't want it to go. So I prefer to do this on fabric that hasn't been sewn yet, but I don't always get that luxury. Sometimes, you know, people send in their costumes and they're already sewn. So you can still do that, but it gets a little bit tricky. So what you gotta do is you wanna make sure, if you wanna get close here, you wanna make sure that you're setting up evenly and that you put some either paper or cardboard or something in between that suit. You don't want to just like lay down the suit and do it right on there. You want to put something that protects the fabric, like it's going to soak through, so you don't want it to soak through all the way through to the front part if you're doing the back, especially if it's pigmented, because then you're going to see that color coming through. The other thing you need are just, you can find, you know, small needles. You don't want to use something too big, so like needles like this to just kind of like stretch out the fabric as much as you can. It doesn't need to be overstretched, just kind of stretched so that the emblem looks the shape that you know it's supposed to look, and then the silicone will stretch if it stretches more than that when being worn. But for this, you just want to place your needles so that you're stretching out the fabric as much as possible, avoiding as many wrinkles as you can. Sometimes you're gonna get some wrinkling, and that's okay, but just try to get it as even as possible, all right? So this has already been outlined with puff paint. That's gonna be the first thing you're gonna wanna do, is you're gonna use your puff paint to outline your emblem, and that creates a sort of wall for your emblem, for your design. It doesn't have to be an emblem, it can be, you know, whatever costume. Basically what you need to do is just outline, create some sort of barrier for the silicone so that it stays within that area. Okay, so that's already done, and we're gonna start the mixing process to start pouring this emblem. Yeah, it's about 1 tablespoon. So as you're pouring, you want to keep an eye on the material as it's setting, so that you can kind of, what I do is I hold it against the light, and I went for 1 tablespoon because you really don't need that much for something that will be about this size. If anything, you want to have a little bit extra just in case, but you really don't need to pour a whole lot, especially for something this small. I have 1 tablespoon of each that I'm going to be mixing together, and I'm going to be applying the pigment as well before I put it into the little baggie. Another thing you want to keep handy, see, like I just like barely like touch the bag with like the silicone and then the bag, and now that pigment's going to get everywhere. So you want to have some napkins. You want to make sure you have some napkins, some rags, something to make sure that you're keeping things clean. So I'm going to just grab just a little bit of pigment. See, like that much should be more than enough. And I'm going to be mixing it into the material. So you want to pour, since we're only doing 1 tablespoon, I can fit both back into one of these little cups. Otherwise, if you were doing more, then you gotta have a bigger cup that you're gonna pour into. Both of these onto the bigger cup. But for here, they will fit 2 tablespoons just fine. And you guys can order these on Amazon. Again, I get these from Amazon. Unless I'm at Reynolds, then I grab a bunch there. I always try to have like these handy because I use them for most of my small mixes. All right, so as you can see, that pigment will start to pick up like immediately. So you just want to mix that really well. The good thing with this silicone is that it'll give you plenty of time to work. So you don't need to worry about like going too fast. All right, so now I am going to drop that on into my baggie. All right, so here we go. So then you're gonna trap that little blob in your bag. And you are going to cut one of these little corners. Just do a little snip. You can see that. Just gonna snip off the corner. To give yourself just a small hole for the material to come out during your pour. And this is the part that's fun. It's kind of like decorating a cake. You are basically going to be decorating this cake right here, this emblem, and always keep a piece of paper or tissue with you as you're doing this, because that will help you cut the stream wherever you need it. So let's get close here so that we can see how you're gonna pour. What I like to do first is just kind of create an outline. Like so. You don't need to apply too much pressure, just kind of keep a steady pour as you can. You can do it this way, you can do it crisscross. The point here is to kind of start laying this out on your design, and then it's slowly going to start coming together. And I'll teach you a neat little way to also start getting those edges cleaner. So then I'm going to go on to the legs here. See, I'm not trying to fill everything out immediately. I'm just trying to lay the material down first within the design. And try to go over the entire design first, kind of laying in the material, creating a sort of a perimeter, focusing on the outer portions first, staying of course within those little walls of puff paint that you made. And I'm just gently squeezing. For the most part, it'll come out on its own. You don't need to like hurry or be overly rushed as you're doing this, but you also want to make sure that you're doing this as to keep it in one session as much as possible. Like don't like step away and go do something else and then come back and continue, because then you're gonna have the material already setting. And especially when you're working with the colors, you're aiming so that it's all one consistent color. All right. So now, I'm gonna put this down here for a second. I'm gonna show you guys when you're getting to those corners, you can grab a needle or a little stick okay. So something like this, a little needle or something that you can use to start kind of bringing together, especially on the edges here. You see, like you want to get to this edge, but you don't want to like make it overflow. So you can push this material out, and then it's gonna set nice and evenly again. So you don't need to worry too much about it looking uneven. But that's what I do like on the corners, because the corners can be tricky, because if you pour too much, then you're gonna overflow. And if you do, that's totally fine. It's no biggie, because I'm gonna show you guys how to clean that up if that happens. So then what you do, you just kind of continue to fill in until you kind of get a good sense of how much you need in there to fill in the whole emblem. Okay, you guys, so I went in and put in more material until I started seeing everything kind of close together. Again, you don't want to over pour too much. So when you have little areas that are like little holes, like maybe like right there, like right there, you can go in with your baggie and just kind of drop in a little bit more material when it's a safe area like here. But then for those edges, you're gonna want to use the needle method right here, and just kind of push it out, push out some of that material onto that corner. See right there. And don't be afraid, like don't feel like you're like, oh, I'm messing it up. This hasn't set yet, so it'll get nice and even before it sets. Obviously don't wait like, you know, a few hours before you start doing this, because then you are gonna have a more viscous texture to it, and then it's not gonna do what you want it to do. All right, so for the most part, we have a pretty filled out emblem here. So we got lucky, you know, with the amount of material that we put into the bag. We had enough to cover this entire thing. If you, for any reason, you poured, you didn't have enough to cover the entire design, when you realize that, you're gonna want to immediately do another little pour so that you can do it as close to the original pour time as possible, so that it doesn't cure looking different. You don't want it to look like two different different colors, because the pigment, you might have used plenty of pigment the first time and then not enough pigment on the second one, or anything like that. Or just the fact that it cures at different times, and then it just kind of looks, most people won't notice, but you might notice, you might see that difference. Okay, so looks like we're not gonna have to do a lot of cleanup on this one, but, and I showed you guys on the stories, on the circle things, when you do have something that over pours or comes out of your area, which happened a lot with this guy. I'll show you guys, like right here. You'll see that it's kind of like cut. That's exactly what you do. Say like if you had this, like the silicone, for some reason it just came out all the way there, it created a whole pool there, and you're like, oh shit dude, like I ruined it. Not necessarily. You can use a needle. Sometimes I like to use like the nice like stitching needles, and what you do is, like, say if you had like a big like area that came out there, you'll score the edge. You'll just kind of score it and score it and score it until you're basically cutting into that edge. And then with some tweezers, you will lift. You gotta imagine, you know, you have your blob here. You're gonna lift some of that corner and just kind of start lifting it up, and then it's gonna peel away, and it's not gonna stain the soup. But you gotta wait until it's fully cured. You don't want to do that before it's cured, because otherwise then you are going to kind of like put it into the material. You're gonna put that stain on there. So you can kind of notice it here, like where there's a little bit of an outline here, is because there was a little bit of a blob. So peel that, and then you can just go back and clean this. It's just a transparent material. So with the other one, you know, it has tint, so it's gonna be really scary. But I guarantee you, if you peel it out, like you wait till it's fully set and you peel it up, you're gonna be fine. All right, guys. So that's basically your step-by-step tutorial. That's the materials you need. There's really not much to it. Don't be scared. Give it a shot. I'm gonna show you guys how this looks once it's all set up. I'm gonna stretch it for you so you guys can see it. And that's it. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments, or you can always shoot me an email, elfetprojects@gmail.com, and let me know what you guys want to learn next. All right.
How long does it take to cure before you can actually do stuff with it?
Oh, actually, that's a good question, Johnny. Johnny's one of the patrons, okay? And he learned how to do this firsthand because he's local, and he comes and helps me out every week. So it'll say right on the box, but you want to wait a little longer than what the box will say. So I like to wait at least 4 hours before I start kind of like touching it or, you know, like messing with it. And then just for safety, if you don't need to do anything else to it, just kind of leave it for the rest of the day. Maybe don't touch it till the next day before you start like unpinning it and stretching it and doing all that. All right, guys. Any other questions? Shoot them down below. I'm sure, you know, there may be questions that I don't think of because I've been doing this so long. But if something you feel like I skipped over or you didn't quite get how it works, just let me know, and you know, we can go back. That's what the Patreon's for. We don't need to make you know, close it out once the video's done, and then it's done. It's like, nope, can't go back to that. Video's done. No, let me know, and I can always do follow-ups for you guys. All right.
Okay.
Cool.
Good. Look at those sandals.
Oh yeah, and I got the chanclas on, dude. That is how I roll with my Croc sandals, man. They're nice and comfy. Tienes el papel aquí abajo for safety. Casi no se pasó, pero un poquito ahí. Que se estira.